Downloadable content, in general, is a mixed bag. You've got map packs, skins, new weapons, and the holy grail of them all, story DLC. And with these, you have some which provide a new take on a series, providing a fresh experience which when combined with the base product, lift the overall package. And on the other side of the coin, you have some which have unlimited potential, and they squander it, diminishing their vision with reused and recycled content in a quest to stay cost effective. The difficulty is you never quite know what you're going to get. For every great one, there's tons which aren't worth the price, or more importantly, your time. When I finished Dead Space 2 back on its release, I felt content with the experience I had, and more so than that, I was acutely aware this was an EA published game, and in typical EA fashion, they were trying to milk every last penny they could out of the IP, releasing not one, not two, but 3 different content packs, each containing their own suits and weapon skins, and that's on top of the pre-order bonuses or unlocks for playing additional games in the series. And so, when they showed the upcoming story DLC entitled Severed, which would launch 2 months after the base game on the 1st of March 2011 for $6.99 on PS3 and Xbox 360. To say I was dubious would be an understatement, and my suspicions were concreted when the reviews came out, landing a middling 57% on Metacritic. And so, with all this in mind, I passed on it. But all these years later, as I'm reviewing the series, I felt it was right to go back and give it a chance, to see if I was too quick in passing over the experience, or if my original fears were justified. Well, in this review, I'll answer that question. Now, if you haven't played Severed before, there's no need to worry about spoilers. I'll provide timestamps to help you move around them. Now let's dive in. Severed sees the return of 2 familiar characters, Gabe Weller and Lexi Murdoch. You may remember them from the surprisingly awesome light gun game Dead Space Extraction. After surviving the colony of Aegis 7 and their time aboard the USG Ishimura, the 2 survivors settled on the Sprawl, and sometime in the 3 years after the events of Extraction, they married, with Lexine taking the name of Weller. The pair kept quiet about the events on the colony, and as such, they've been left alone to pick up the pieces of their lives and find happiness in each other. That happiness isn't fated to last, as Gabe and his security team are called down to the Titan Mines, where he comes face to face with the kind of reunion that makes my high school one look like the best day of my life.
I've been waiting a long time for this.
You know me, bitch!
Oh, God! I'm a grown goddamn man!
Gabe, realizing that shit is only gonna go downhill, instructs Lexine to head to their shuttle so they can hightail it out of there, as he ignores his orders and moves to find her. And so begins Dead Space Severed. Lasting just over an hour in length, the story here doesn't go too much further than this initial setup. It's a simple case of finding your loved one and getting the hell out of Dodge. And unlike the rest of the series, it doesn't stop to give any additional information. There's no audio logs, diaries, or written lore. It's move forward and don't stop. Now that does wonders for the pacing, as the momentum is dialed up to 11. And I guess this makes sense. Would you really stop to read a document if your loved one is in danger?
Maybe.
To me, it's just kinda lazy. Dead Space 2 is chock full of lore and files, and the pacing doesn't suffer with it. It's one of those breaks in logic that you ignore in video games. The world may be ending, but there's always time to do a spot of chocobo riding, or some meaningless side quest to earn a new piece of armor. Sure, these aren't one-to-one examples, but you get what I'm saying here. Extra lore or backstory for key characters wouldn't ruin the pace or pull us out of the experience. We go along with it. we suspend our disbelief. Including them would give you opportunity to learn more about the couple, deepening the bond you were supposed to feel, and without it, you get that feeling of a rush, but it comes at a cost, and one which feels like a get out of jail free card for the devs, where they can say they weren't included to add to the realism for the characters, but really, it's due to a lack of care. And the worst thing about it is, this game does need to have some explanation included, as there's moments here that leave you scratching your head. Now I'm going to move this into spoilers just for the moment, but I'll be back to tie all this together shortly. Right near the end of the DLC, we hear about the Oracle program. The gist of this is that they want Lexine to get pregnant so they can study her baby, and that's why she has been designated as a key target for elimination. So what is the Oracle program, and why is it important? Well, jog your mind back to Dead Space Extraction. Remember how the marker was affecting everyone on Aegis 7 and later the Ishimura? Well, not Lexine. She was immune, and this was of big interest to EarthGov.
This is Overseer Eckhart, code word Oracle, with a message for Enigma Lang. Events on Aegis 7 and the Ishimura are extraordinary. The marker is genuine, though its effects are disturbing, and I am blessed to have survived. I have found the subject you were looking for, Lexine Murdoch, a surveyor. She appears immune to the marker's effects, as you predicted. Nobody knows but me. There was a botanist here who suspected my mission, but I've taken care of her.
You son of a bitch!
Now that backstory is fine, if you've played Extraction. If you haven't, you wouldn't have a clue what's going on. And if you want to know even more about the Oracle program, you have to pick up the graphic novel Dead Space Salvage. Now this is a personal bugbear of mine, but I hate it when essential understanding is hidden behind other forms of media. It comes off as pure laziness, when all they needed was a file to explain them. Now while I got you in the spoilers, there's one part here which I want to praise. The ending.
Just following orders.
Lex, Bartlett set off a grenade.
Oh my God!
I'm not gonna make it.
No! That's not possible!
I can blow the bay doors for you from out here. You can get away. You win the baby. I love you, Lex.
Gabe.
I love you.
I didn't see this coming at all, and it genuinely shocked me. My jaw was on the floor. For as little as I ended up caring about Lexine and Gabe's relationship due to his short runtime, to get any sense of surprise here is welcome, and it set up a loose thread which the devs could pull at for the inevitable Dead Space 3 follow-up. Now with hindsight, we know this doesn't actually go anywhere, and as far as my memory goes, we don't encounter Lexine ever again. But who knows, with Dead Space 4 now being a possibility thanks to the remake, this could be the thread which finds a needle. The story told here in Severed is basic, and it remains that way for the duration of the DLC. It provides possibilities for the future, but unfortunately, it leaves potential to provide further insight into EarthGov's shady projects to the wayside, in favour of keeping the pace breakneck. Now in terms of the gameplay and presentation, there isn't too much to talk about here. It's the same as the base game, so there's no point in covering off what I went through in my Dead Space 2 video, and if you want to know how I feel about it, I'd encourage you to watch that nearly 40-minute deep dive. So instead, I'll talk you through some of the differences. In terms of where you travel in Severed, you are on an opposite path to Isaac. Gabe travels from the mines of Titan to meet Lexine in the medical ward, rather than starting in medical and moving through the environment towards the mines. And what's clever is, as you go through the familiar environments, you encounter the aftermath of Isaac's fights. And these put a smile on my face as I reminisce on the set pieces from the base game. I just wish this applied in the inverse, where moments from Severed give fresh insight into what you've seen as Isaac. I'll give you an example here. There's a moment Gabe does battle with a ship and it crashes. Now if they had thought about it, they could have made the ship crash into another one, and even though this is only a tiny moment in Dead Space 2's environmental storytelling, the fans would have noticed this and put the two together. It's the little things that show care. Like how playing RE3 Remake, you see how the shower room is destroyed from RE2 Remake. They don't need to include it, but it helps you see familiar spaces or events in a fresh new light. It's a small thing, but one that could have been elevated without too much effort. Leaving that to the side, now I've mentioned pace quite a lot over this short review already, but I'll labour the point here. The game does not slow down, not even for a moment. Every room you enter, you get into a fight. It's constant, and due to this, there's no chance for atmosphere or tension to build outside of the knowledge that you will get jumped. You just run or walk through environments with your gun ready, and know you're going to be taking the same combat encounters you've done with Isaac, with no real differences between him and Gabe. And that's the thing, they could have used this as a chance to make the protagonist feel distinct, to give Gabe a new weapon to make him feel completely different. Just imagine they gave him the plasma saw from Dead Space Mobile to partake in some melee combat. Or if they brought back the pistol from Extraction, anything like this would have helped. But no, they played it safe. Now I get it, the general gameplay in Dead Space 2 is incredible, so why fix what isn't broken? But I would have liked to have seen something new here, to take some risks and see if it pays off, and if it did, it would give them opportunity to build this into future sequels. But no, the only new inclusion here is the return of the Twitcher from the original Dead Space. Seeing them return was nice, and it certainly provided ample challenge when combined with the many enemies in Dead Space 2, but to me, that's not enough. It's wild that a title like Dead Space Mobile is so chock full of creative passion and new ideas, whereas the only story DLC for Dead Space 2 feels like well-trodden ground. It's a waste of potential. And that summarizes this game. It's one where it's a full-on adrenaline ride, and that's it. Severed doesn't add much of anything to the series, with no changes to gameplay and not enough time to make you care about its characters. But if you just want to play more Dead Space 2 and have fun for an hour, then I guess it delivers that. It's not an essential experience by any means, and at $6.99, it's a lot to ask for what is throwaway content. But in saying that, as the gameplay for Dead Space 2 is at such high caliber, it's always fun to engage with combat, even if that's all there is. Younger me was right to give this a wide berth. If I had been excited to dive into this experience having waited 2 months from launch for new Dead Space content, I would have come away from it disappointed. But going in on a whim with middling expectation, I did find some enjoyment here. I suppose you need to make a judgment call if $6.99 is worth it for an hour's content. That's up to you, but personally, I feel you could spend that same sum on any number of worthwhile experiences and come away from them feeling like you've got your fill. With Severed, you're only going to finish it hungry for more. And that's it for this review. If you enjoyed it, put a like on it and subscribe for more Dead Space content. Let me know your thoughts on Severed in the comments. I try to respond to everyone, so I'll look forward to discussing it with you. Up next, I'll be covering Dead Space Remake before I move on to Dead Space 3, and I look forward to seeing you back here for then. If you're still craving a bit more from me, and you're a fan of PlayStation, consider checking out my podcast In PS We Trust. It's a show where we go through all the latest news, rumours and hype, while drinking excessively. It's not good for my liver, but it makes for an entertaining time. I'll have links in the description. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. See ya.